Hi everyone. Um, I'm Tom. I am not a migrant and I've only been a mentor for about a month, maybe slightly longer than a summer, but not much. Um, I joined Migrant Leaders. I was looking at trying to mentor, though I didn't really know or recognize that word when I first started looking. And whilst I'm not a migrant, Ellen's message really resonated with me. I don't want to talk too much politics, but it just made a lot of sense. And a bit like as Pooja was saying, it's helpful having people with a very different background to you and a different view set. That sort of goes both ways. I'm learning a lot from my mentee and having a mentee in partly because we have such different backgrounds. Um, so I grew up on a farm in the south of England. I now live in Tottenham. Um, I think I'm fairly normal, but I think everyone thinks they're fairly normal. Um, I wasn't great at school. I wasn't bad at school. I got enough grades to go to university, but I didn't enjoy school. And I often got quite down thinking, oh, well, people say school is the best time of your life. And then I'm not liking it now, so I'm not going to like the future too much. Not true. I found even though I wasn't great at school or university, I'm much better in my career. I just find that a lot more fulfilling. And that was something that I really appreciated on graduating. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I studied engineering at Durham, which is a really beautiful university town. It was a really lovely place to be and had quite a nice sort of social area. I'd put in there that I met my wife there as well. University is very useful for getting jobs, but you can benefit in other ways. I also did some internships whilst I was there, one of which was really fun and had a climbing wall, which is why I put it in there. You don't assume workplaces are going to have climbing walls, but that one did. Um, like Maya, I also graduated into the COVID pandemic, which is probably the worst time to graduate. I had a job unofficially lined up with a major car company, which just fell through, just disappeared. So I was desperately looking for jobs, and through a friend of a friend, through my network, a job at a company called Cable Consulting International came up. I had never thought about cables or power before and had no interest really whatsoever, but I was like, well, I'll give it a go. It sounds interesting. I could learn something here, and I did. And I was really, really lucky to get that role. It was a really interesting role. It was a very small company, about 10 other employees, all of whom were substantially older than me, but had a huge amount of experience and were generally regarded as industry experts and really technically capable. And I was learning a huge amount there, becoming a sort of technical subject matter expert. And despite being a graduate or only a year into my career, very senior people at companies were looking up to me and wanting my thoughts in this very technical matter. And yet, after about 2 years, I was beginning to realize I wasn't fitting, and that was quite a hard thing to realize when everyone's looking at you, respecting you, saying, "Oh, you're so lucky to be working there. It's such a great company." But it just wasn't resonating with me. Whilst it was a great place to become a technical expert, I really wanted to work in a team, as manage some teams, work with people. I wasn't fully interested in just being a subject matter expert. Um, so eventually I realized that and allowed myself to start looking elsewhere. And then I applied to another consultancy, which was focused more on offshore wind, but was a bigger team, much more team focused. And instead of being a fully called in just to solve technical issues, it was solving much larger issues, um, and just a different bunch of people, a nice bunch of people, and more opportunity to have that sort of team feel. Um, I really enjoyed being there. I was there for about 2 years, and after that, I had worked in consultancy for about 4 years and realized that I wanted to in order to grow, it'd be helpful for me to understand the requirements of the people we were consulting for. So an opportunity came up to work for BP in offshore wind, and I took it. I thought it was a great chance to get some developer experience. Um, So I now work in offshore wind at BP. I'm between different teams. That's something that I have noticed, and a few other people were touching on it, that often different teams struggle to communicate well, and that I sit between a technical engineering, very technically dominated team, and then we have finance teams who are very focused on spreadsheets and costs, and then we have consenting teams that are very focused on things like bird surveys and all of the consenting and permitting issues and the legal issues. And I sort of sit between them, trying to help these different teams communicate, and as I think Pooja was mentioning, bridging between different teams, which I find really, really rewarding. Some people really, really hate, and I think that's a really important thing. It's just because there's the right thing for someone doesn't mean it's right for you. And that's something that sort of echoed throughout my career. I found myself in places where either it's worked for me and wouldn't for someone else, or it is not working for me, even though it would be working well for others. So I've been a bit quick going through, but we're quite short on time. But mainly the things that I've learned, I've written there is by focusing on things that I enjoy, things that I'm learning more, I find it a really interesting way of working and just makes work more enjoyable. Um, and then when you realize that it's time for a change or things aren't working, just be open to taking those. I put off applying to the job at Exodus for about 6 months just because everyone was telling me I was lucky to be at cable consulting. So I just delayed making that transition, and really I should have made it earlier because it wasn't working and I knew that, but I just wasn't listening to myself. Um, and then the main thing is working with people. The people you work with make the biggest difference. My favorite job ever, which I haven't even listed here, was packaging in a warehouse when I was about 17, purely because the person I was standing next to on the line was absolutely hilarious. I'd come in at 7 in the morning and just spend 8 hours laughing. It was the worst job, in terms of if you look at sort of what you'd see on the description and pay and everything, but it was the best job in terms of job experience. I really, really loved that. Um, so yeah, I'm happy for any questions if anyone wants to talk about engineering, or any of sort of studying engineering, getting chartered status in engineering. I'm more than happy to reach out and speak one-to-one.
Thank you, Tom.